It was a crazy day in the world of baseball. Big injuries, another massive prospect promotion, and big performances. Let's break it all down. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, July 5th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by the birthday boy, Chris Towers. Before we get started, please like this video and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. And if you're listening on the audio side, download, follow, and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. We really do appreciate it. Chris, happy belated birthday. Did you do anything fun?
Yeah, over the weekend I did some fun stuff, but not today. No, I stayed home and played video games and made an expensive steak and tried to comfort my dog while the fireworks were going off, which it's 12:28 as we're recording it, and I'm still hearing fireworks in the background. So apologies if you hear some popping in the background. It's just fireworks. It's fine.
What video games are we playing nowadays?
Little Tears of the Kingdom, and then as always, Warzone. You know, that's hanging with the boys playing Warzone. You know how it is.
I don't exactly, because I haven't played Call of Duty or Warzone in quite a while, but I can imagine. I'm currently playing a really old Zelda game for the Game Boy Color, Link's Awakening, but
Great game.
No one cares about that. Anyway, be nice to Chris in the comments, by the way. I know you YouTubers out there, you're being real mean to Chris with the thumbnail. You're fun, man. We got all the emotions and the facial expressions and all that kind of crazy stuff. Be nice to Chris. Let's get into it. A bunch of crazy news from the 4th of July. And we'll start off with the biggest news of the day. Mike Trout placed on the IL with a left hamate bone fracture in his hand, which typically requires 4 to 6 weeks to heal. It's bit of a down season here for Mike Trout. He was batting .263, but he had 18 home runs. He was the 16th best outfielder in head-to-head points leagues, 17th best in Roto this year. Chris, your initial thoughts? I know that a lot of big names have dealt with this injury before. I believe Giancarlo Stanton has had it in the past. Wander Franco dealt with it last year as well. Your immediate reaction to Mike Trout out 4 to 6 weeks?
Well, it's unfortunate, first of all, just because Trout was actually staying healthy so far this season. And look, he wasn't having a great season, but like he was still on right around 100 run, 90 RBI, 35 homer pace while not killing you in batting average. So his struggles had been pronounced, but he was starting to show signs of turning it around lately as well. So it's bad news all around. Hopefully it doesn't linger. And, you know, obviously anytime you're talking about the hand or wrist, there's some concern. I think hamate bone injuries, once you get past them, they tend to be okay, but it's certainly a concern.
Yeah, let's talk about quickly how this affects the Angels, because they did recall Joe Adell. And though I mostly feel like he'll be a short side platoon, at least immediately, and maybe he earns more playing time in the near future. But it's good news for Mickey Moniak, who has quietly had a really good season, and we've talked about him here or there. And every time we bring him up, we say, well, there's not enough playing time. That's about to change. I think Mickey Moniak is at least going to be the strong side platoon in the outfield moving forward. Joe Adell was doing some nice things in the minors this year, batting .271 with 23 home runs, 9 steals, and a .956 OPS. And since the start of June, someone pointed this out to me on Twitter, Joe Adell had the same number of walks to strikeouts, 17 walks, 17 strikeouts. So the plate discipline has trending in the right direction. He's hitting the ball really hard in the minors, lots of home runs. Chris, do you see any value here for Joe Adell, or is it just a short side platoon in the immediate aftermath?
We'll keep an eye on it. I mean, this is a guy whose 162 game pace at AAA over the course of his career is 45 home runs with a .903 OPS, tons of strikeouts. That remains an issue, 86 and 72 games so far this season. It's about a 27% strikeout rate. At this point, I think the most likely thing is that Joe Adell is just a quad A player, but Mickey Moniak didn't even seem like a quad A player a month and a half ago, and all of a sudden he's a pretty big part of the Angels offense right now. So progress isn't always linear. You never know what will actually happen when it comes to guys like this, but he's certainly got talent, so we'll keep an eye on it. Not someone you're rushing out to add, but you know, if he gets hot, you know, it's worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and I will point out that just a rough day all around for Angels fans. I am sorry.
Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani left his start with a blister on his right middle finger. He was dealing with a cracked fingernail on the same finger in his previous start. He's not going to pitch in the All-Star game. And after the game, he said, he doesn't know if he's going to hit for the next couple of games. So I guess that could open up an opportunity for Joe Adell in the short term. We'll see what he does in those games and how he builds off of that moving forward. How can we replace Mike Trout? Obviously, there's a lot of power there, usually a solid batting average, lots of counting stats. So anything you find on the waiver wire is not going to be Mike Trout. But the most added outfielders recently, the top 4, TJ Friedl, Leody Taveras, Tommy Pham, and Andrew McCutchen, names that we've talked about a lot recently. Chris, let's just remind the people, how would you rank that group? Friedl, Leody Taveras, Tommy Pham, Andrew McCutchen.
I think I'd go Taveras, Pham, McCutchen, and Friedl. I think is the way I would go. It might depend on the format. McCutchen's a little better in points leagues because his plate discipline remains very good. But overall, I think Taveras is the most interesting option of that group.
Yeah, I liked Leody Taveras and Tommy Pham the most. TJ Friedl has been awesome this year. If it's speed that you're looking for, I think he's probably the answer. He's hit for a lot of batting average this season as well. But he's also the least available. He's 76% rostered on CBS. So maybe it's like a 10 or 12 team points league, something shallow there for TJ.
And I will say, I know we're about to talk about it, but the best option if you need an outfielder might be Orioles prospect Colton Cowser.
Yep, and we will talk about him in just a little bit. Few names in deeper leagues, 5 outfielder leagues. I think Mickey Moniak, with the way that he's played, he's someone that you could look at. He's batting .305 with a .983 OPS in the games he's played with the Angels this season. Jose Siri, still only 29% rostered, and Oscar Colas, who was recalled on Tuesday. He started in right field for the White Sox. He was doing some really good things in the minors as well. Chris, how do you rank that group? 5 outfielder leagues, Jose Siri, Oscar Colas, Mickey Moniak.
I actually have Siri in, I believe, the Tout Wars League, or maybe TGFBI, one of those. And he's a fine player. I think the underlying stats are pretty solid for him, but I would go with Oscar Colas here and just, see if he can figure out what we were all so excited about coming into the season. You remember he had a .928 OPS at AA last season. Overall at AAA, 306 average, 894 OPS, 11 homers in 55 games. So I think there's still a solid skill set there. He didn't have great plate discipline, but again, 866 OPS at AAA this season. So do not want to write Oscar Colas off at the age of 24. Still a very talented player. So he'd be the most interesting of that group.
All right. Well, we already mentioned what's going on with Shohei Ohtani. Hopefully the diagnosis and the news comes out okay and he's pitching and hitting after the All-Star break. It wouldn't surprise me if they give him a couple of days off hitting there, but hopefully everything is good there with Shohei Ohtani because he's amazing and baseball is infinitely better when he is playing the sport. If you are looking for a Mike Trout replacement, can I interest you in Orioles top prospect Colton Cowser, who will be promoted on Wednesday, 23 years old, a former first-round pick back in 2021. And this year in the minors, he was batting .330 with 10 homers, 7 steals, a .996 OPS in 56 games. He did miss some time with an injury. We're talking really good eye at the plate here. 18.7% walk rate in the minors this season. Routinely double-digit walk rates up and down his minor league career. Does strike out a little bit, a 23% strikeout rate. It's not egregious, but you probably would want that to be a little bit better in the minors as well. Chris, your thoughts on Colton Cowser? Does he play every day? I know the Orioles, they kind of have a crowded outfield. It depends how good you think Aaron Hicks is and how much they're going to play him. But your thoughts on Colton Cowser?
Yeah, there are some definite questions about what the playing time is going to look like there. Obviously, two All-Stars in the outfield. Cedric Mullins, I don't think actually made the All-Star game this year, but Austin Hayes did, and Cedric Mullins, I'm assuming, has made an All-Star game. I actually guess I don't know for sure, but that sounds like something that's happened for Cedric Mullins. And then you've got right field, which has been a lot of Aaron Hicks lately or Anthony Santander. However, I did notice Anthony Santander has first base eligibility now in fantasy. He's played 5 games there. And I do wonder if the answer here might be, Hicks and Cowser primarily play right field. Cowser has experience playing center field, so the outfield defense should benefit from him being there. Hicks also has been a good defender in his career. And so I do wonder if that's the way they go, where it's maybe Hicks plays a little more DH, maybe Cowser DHs some, and Santander plays a little more first base. We kind of push Ryan O'Hearn out until, of course, Ryan Mountcastle comes back. I believe he started his rehab assignment the last few days, or is about to start a rehab assignment. So there are some definite playing time concerns here for Cowser. I would guess they're calling him up to play right away. The other thing I'll point out is the plate discipline is good overall. He strikes out a lot against lefties. Last season against lefties across 3 levels, he had a 34% strikeout rate, 616 OPS. This season, the OPS is much better. It's 903 against lefties. However, 19 strikeouts and 59 plate appearances, that comes out to about a 32% strikeout rate. So I do think there are real platoon risks with Colton Cowser. And, you look at the minor league StatCast data, and it's good, but not great. It's like an 89.9 mile per hour average exit velocity, 110 mile per hour max exit velo. That's good, but it's not necessarily I worry that Colton Cowser has a little bit of Brandon Pfaadt. It's not going to go out that poorly, I think, but where we've been talking about him so much because the proximity to the majors is there, that it's are we overstating the likelihood of a high-end outcome? That's my concern with Colton Cowser. I think he's someone you should absolutely add because, it's a good lineup and he's got the opportunity and the prospect pedigree and the minor league numbers are good, but I'm not convinced he's going to be a difference maker for fantasy.
I agree with you on the platoon splits, and I do worry a little bit about maybe he doesn't play against left-handed pitching. The Brandon Pfaadt thing, I don't know if I completely buy in there. I think Colton Cowser is a different level of prospect. I mean, 5th overall pick back in 2021. Just looked up Brandon Pfaadt. He was a 5th round pick. So I think there's different.
Sure. Yeah.
He's a better prospect. I hear what you're saying with the exit velocities, but all he's done is hit in the minors.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
Really good plate discipline. So I don't want to sell him short, but you're right. I think there could be some playing time concerns, at least from the jump here on Colton Cowser. Just comparing him to those other names that we mentioned, the TJ Friedels, Leody Taveras, Tommy Pham, Andrew McCutchen. Does Colton Cowser jump to the front of that group?
I think that's fine. I think it's likelier, given the way Leody Taveras has played, that he's better.
Yeah.
But if you have to choose, you always have to consider not just who's the likely to be the best player, but the opportunity risk of not adding someone. Leody Taveras has been a really good player for a month and a half, 2 months now, and he's still only 69% rostered. Colton Cowser is probably going to get pretty close to there, whether he does anything in the next couple of days or not, just because he's such a big name prospect. So I think if you have to make a choice, there's more risk that this is the last chance you have to get Cowser on your team.
These were some of the questions I got on Twitter regarding Colton Cowser. Would I drop these players for him? Someone asked TJ Friedel. Would you drop TJ Friedel?
I'd be fine with that, yeah.
Somebody asked me Luis Matos. Would you make that move?
I don't think so. I think I'd rather have Matos.
That one's close. I know the data for Matos hasn't looked good. He's more likely to play every day. I think I would lean with Cowser, but it is close. Someone asked, drop Jordan Westberg, his teammate, for Colton Cowser.
I don't think so, but obviously, it could come down to if you need an outfielder versus a shortstop.
I think Westberg is more likely to play every day, but I think Cowser's upside is higher. So I guess weigh those things on a per game basis. I think Cowser could be better.
A couple that I got that I said yes to were drop Jared Kelenic or Cody Bellinger for Colton Cowser. And, I like those guys in terms of the upside, but neither of them has really done anything in the last 2 months. Bellinger really hasn't done anything in the last 2 months. So I think I'd be fine with that. But I think that's the type of I think Bellinger and Kelenic especially has more upside than Cowser probably. But, I'm fine making that swap given how bad Bellinger and Kelenic have been.
I feel better about doing it for Kelenic, especially in a shallow league. It's just Kelenic has been really bad for quite some time. Cody Bellinger, I did have him on the rundown a little bit later on. And in 16 games since returning from the IL, he's batting .304. for what it's worth. Over 300 with 0 homers. So there's not really much pop there, but he is hitting for some batting average. That is Cody Bellinger. Close call there. But Colton Cowser getting the call on Wednesday. We'll see what his playing time is moving forward. He's 35% rostered and could very likely be your Mike Trout replacement if you had Mike Trout on your fantasy team. The other, gosh, there was so much big news. Alek Manoah will return to the Blue Jays and start Friday against the Tigers, which is a great matchup in his first start back. The Tigers are 28th in WOBA against right-handed pitching this season. And in Manoah's last start at AA, his best start of the season, 5 innings of 1-run ball, 10 strikeouts. The problem, still had 3 walks over 5 innings, which has been a big issue for Alek Manoah all season long. He's 68% rostered. Chris, are you rushing to the waiver wire to go get Alek Manoah on your team for his return on Friday?
He is not my single most high priority waiver wire ad right now because I would rather have Tarik Skubal in the leagues where both are available. But yeah, I think Manoah pretty much has to be viewed as a must-add player. I mean, as much as I like Tarik Skubal, I think it's really unlikely he has a season as good as either of the previous 2 seasons that Alek Manoah has had. So if he can get back to that kind of upside at all, I think you have to. And the fact that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm certainly surprised he was recalled this quickly. I mean, the start at AA was very good, 10 strikeouts, but, you know, we all saw the start at the Florida Complex League where he gave up like 11 hits in 3 innings or something, or 11 runs in 3 innings. And so, I mean, they didn't care about the results there. Clearly it was just, we wanted him to work for 2 weeks. We identified some mechanical issues. We worked on them in that game, and then we sent him to AA, and that was the one where we were looking at the results. That's clearly how the Blue Jays are viewing this. And the fact that they came away impressed enough to call him back up says to me that he should be better than he has been. Whether he can rediscover, top 3 Cy Young finish level, I think is unlikely. But there aren't pitchers with this kind of upside on the waiver wire in July. It just doesn't happen.
There might not be pitchers with this much downside on the waiver wire based on how Alek Manoah has pitched. And again, nothing is guaranteed here, but just that glimmer of hope, that chance that he could return to form, what we saw last year when he was a top 3 Cy Young candidate in the American League. Alek Manoah returning this Friday. He is 68% rostered. You said you would take Tarik Skubal over him. Chris, would you take Brian Wu over Alek Manoah? He's someone that the Welsh and I spoke a lot about yesterday. He looked really good in his start on Monday.
No, I think Wu is a very talented pitcher, but I saw today actually that there is going to be an innings limit for him at some point. I don't know if they're going to just shut him down or move him to the bullpen or skip starts or whatever, but he's already, I think, 15 to 20 innings over his total from last season, if I'm remembering that correctly. Yeah. And so there's probably going to be, maybe another month where he's useful, but I think that's probably about it for Brian Wu. So as much as I like him, I think he's clearly behind those guys and probably more in like the Kenta Maeda range.
Of course, the Welsh and I waxed poetic about Brian Wu and how great he's been and all these whiffs he's getting. And then, of course, that report that you mentioned, Brian Wu expected to be shut down at some point in the second half of the season. He's up to 72 2/3 innings this season between the majors and minors. Last year, he only threw 57 innings in the minors. So he's already 15 past that. Maybe he gets hard capped at like 100, 120, something like that.
Yeah, I think like 115, 120 is probably like the absolute max.
All right. I missed this on Monday night, but Thairo Estrada was placed on the IL with a fractured left hand. He was hit by a pitch on Sunday and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks as well. Another huge loss. He was batting .272 with 9 home runs and 18 steals this season. The 52nd overall player in Roto. He was averaging 3.2 fantasy points per game in points leagues as well. The most added middle infielders on CBS right now: Ha-Sung Kim, Ezequiel Tovar, Michael Garcia, and Jordan Westberg. Jordan Westberg, by the way, went 2 for 4 with a double on Tuesday. Chris, how would you rank those middle infielders? Kim, Tovar, Michael Garcia, Westberg.
I think I would go. This is another one where, like, I think Tovar will probably be better than Jordan Westberg rest of the way. But again, Ezequiel Tovar has been really good for like basically the last 2 months. He had an awful April, but since the start of May, I haven't updated in a few days, but when I looked on Sunday, his 162 game pace since the start of May was like 25 homers, a 280 batting average, 90 runs, 100 RBI, and 12 steals or something. He'd been awesome. So I think he's likelier to be better than Jordan Westburg, but Westburg's already more rostered. So this is, again, probably your last chance to add Jordan Westburg if you don't.
Yeah, I think Tovar and Westburg are probably at the top of the list. I really like what Ha-Seong Kim has done as well, and he's been leading off for the Padres. A lineup I keep expecting to get going, and it's just not happening. They, for some reason, cannot get everybody going at the same time this season. It's been very frustrating. If it's speed that you're looking for in particular, because Thairo Estrada does provide a lot of speed, Michael Garcia does make some sense there. So
yes,
it's Westburg and Tovar up at the top. If you need speed, Michael Garcia and Ha-Seong Kim. Sorry, bud. I don't think you make the cut, but I do like.
Although, like, I noticed the other day, he's like third in the majors in wins above replacement at Baseball Reference. He has 4 wins already.
He's good.
He's having a great season.
He's good defensively. He's walked a lot this year. The OPS
playing everywhere, yeah.
Solid for Ha-Seong Kim, and a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. Frankly, I don't think any of those options are bad. So if you lost Thairo Estrada, I think you're probably in good shape if you can get one of those 4 names. What about if you play in a deeper league? Nick Gonzalez, Andy Ibanez, Gene Segura. These are names you're probably looking at in 14-team leagues or deeper, anything like that. Chris, anyone stand out for you there from that group?
Gonzalez probably the most. He's got some prospect pedigree, not huge prospect pedigree, but you know, he's a weird player because you look at the minor league numbers and it's like he's got an 820 OPS between AAA and AA. Basically, it's like 815 maybe, but it's like a 260-ish batting average, and it's between both levels. It's like 13 homers in 130 games or something, and like 15 steals or whatever the numbers are exactly. Those are the ballpark, and it's like, well, the 820 OPS sounds better than everything else does. And so it might be one of those ones where his game's just not fine-tuned for fantasy production. But among this group, I think the Nick Gonzalez of the Pirates is probably the most interesting.
Yep, and Nick Gonzalez went 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and 2 RBI on Tuesday. He is batting .314 with a .988 OPS early on here with the Pirates. I think he's at the top of the list. Gene Segura, he's doing some nice things recently. His last 7 games batting .308 with a home run and a steal. He was a productive player the past couple of years, and he's been mostly awful this year, but maybe he can reclaim some of that old form that we know Gene Segura to have. Let's take our first break, and when we return, we'll hit some waiver wire pitchers. We'll talk about Tarik Skubal. We'll do all that right after this.
You gonna start the engine sometime soon, Erica?
Do you know the odds of all of us being here at this time? It's improbable, and yet here we are, together.
Hold on to your saddles.
Welcome back, and if you are interested in buying some Fantasy Baseball Today merch, you can do exactly that at the Paramount Shop, which offers a mountain of merch from the Paramount shows and movies that you love. Scan the QR code in the top right corner if you're watching on YouTube, or head to ParamountShop.com. Paramount Shop, where products are paramount. Let's talk some waiver wire pitchers. Tarik Skubal was pumping gas in his season debut up against the Oakland A's. 4 no-hit innings with 6 strikeouts. 9 swinging strikes on 57 pitches. That is a 15.8% swinging strike rate. And his fastball was up 2.3 miles per hour. Sinker up over 3 miles per hour compared to last year. So it was easy gas coming from Tarik Skubal in his season debut. Kenta Maeda turned in his first quality start of the season up against the Royals. 7 innings, 2 runs. Only one of those earned with 9 strikeouts and 15 swinging strikes. Kyle Hendricks now has 3 quality starts in a row. He was at the Brewers, 6 innings, 2 runs, 1 earned with 5 strikeouts for him. And JP Sears has just quietly pitched very well this year at the Tigers. 7 1/3 shutout with 4 strikeouts and 15 swinging strikes for him. Chris, I think I know your answer, but how are you ranking this group? Skubal, Maeda, Hendricks, and Sears.
Yeah, Skubal's a clear number one. Remember, before the flexor strain injury, he was having a really good 2022 season, 3.52 ERA, 3.34 xERA. And the biggest change there, his fastball went from world historically disastrously bad in 2021. He gave up a 6.11 slugging percentage, and it was actually lucky, according to the expected stats, to have a number that bad. And then last year, it just became a regular, normal, not great fastball. And then that was huge for him. And now, he's added 2 to 2.5 miles per hour with that pitch. So I think there's significant upside here if the strikeout rate ticks up. Obviously, 12 swinging strikes today on only 57, or 9 swinging strikes on only 57 pitches. That's a very good rate. They'll unleash him a little more in the second half, and I think he could be absolutely a difference maker down the stretch. I think he could be a top 40 starting pitcher the rest of the way if he stays healthy. So he's the clear number one. I think he should be rostered everywhere. And after that, I think I would give Maeda the edge on Hendricks just because the strikeouts have been there. The 3 starts since coming back from the IL. I think I'm trying to remember. I wrote about it earlier. Sorry. I think 21 strikeouts in 3 starts since coming back. 21 strikeouts in 3 starts since coming back. It's only like 17 innings, so it's a very good per inning number. Slider and splitter both look very good today. 12 swinging strikes on those 2 pitches. So I would give Maeda a little bit of an edge over Hendricks. I think it's probably a ceiling versus floor thing. And then Sears, I don't really buy it. I know the results have been pretty good, but the xERA is 4.83 for the season. He doesn't really get a lot of strikeouts, so I'm okay kind of fading JP Sears. Okay,
and I think I mostly agree with your order. I would go Skubal, Maeda, Hendricks, and JP Sears. Kyle Hendricks, while he looks like vintage Kyle Hendricks. He is limiting walks. He's limiting hard contact. He's doing a great job. Love what we've seen. 2.64 ERA, a 0.94 whip. But I do think there will be some regression at some point because his home run to fly ball ratio is 3.4%. That's 11.6% for his career. And his BABIP currently, even with allowing without limiting hard contact, 224 BABIP is really low. So
the thing with Kyle Hendricks is his expected WOBA on contact, which is just balls in play, at his peak was between 335 and 360. Right now it's 339. That's an incredibly good number, whether it's 350 or whether it's 339. The problem is you say he looks like vintage Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks never got a lot of strikeouts, but his strikeout rate at his peak was like 20%. He had 6 straight seasons between 20 and 23%. He was actually not far from being an average strikeout pitcher. This year, it's down to 13.3%. So I do think there's definitely some regression coming. I think he can probably be a high 3s ERA guy moving forward, but certainly not the guy he once was. He's useful, but not must roster.
All right, let's quickly talk about Emmett Sheehan because he had his first real rough outing of the season, and it came up against the Pirates of all teams. 3 2/3 innings, 5 runs allowed, 4 walks to 4 strikeouts. So was a little bit wild in this one. Allowed a lot of hard contact as well. 95.9 average exit velocity against for Emmett Sheehan. And he's kind of a tough pitcher to evaluate early on here, Chris. He's not getting a lot of whiffs, not getting a lot of strikeouts. The walks have been high. He gives up a lot of fly balls. So it seems like eventually there's probably going to be home runs coming against Emmett Sheehan as well. Would you drop him for any of the names we just talked about?
I would hope that I have. I mean, knowing my teams, I certainly have players who I have less faith, or I don't know if faith is the right. Well, it's weird. Faith is a weird word because I think that is the right word for Sheehan. I don't have a lot of confidence that he's going to be an ace moving forward, but there is some faith that he could be that. It's just that right now we haven't really seen what that would look like, right? The changeup whiff rate is 36%. That's very good. 27.6% on the slider. That's iffy, but he certainly hasn't shown the massive upside we saw at AA this season, where he had 88 strikeouts in 53 innings. So if I have to rank them rest of season, I'm going to rank Tarik Skubal ahead of him. And I'm probably, who was the other?
Kent
There's
Maeda,
another. No.
What about
Alek Manoah?
Yeah.
I would probably rank Alek Manoah and Tarik Skubal ahead of him. Certainly Skubal. I have more confidence in him. Manoah more of an upside play, but because we haven't seen a ton of upside from Sheehan yet in terms of the swinging strike rate and the strikeouts, I'd put him below those guys, but I would hope again that I have someone worse, or at least with less upside.
All right.
Andrew Abbott. Sorry. That's what I want to remind ourselves, is that Emmett Sheehan hasn't shown strikeout upside yet. Andrew Abbott didn't show strikeout upside his first 3 starts, and then he has 30 in his last 3. So again, like we talked about on Sunday night's podcast, don't want to talk about young players as if they are finished products. We haven't seen it from Sheehan yet, but I don't want to give up on the upside or the potential of it.
Yep. No, I think that's totally fair, and a good reminder on Emmett Sheehan. Don't think this matters very much, but quick thoughts. Anything on Brandon Bielak, who pitched very well in his return to the Astros? He was facing the Rockies through 7 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts and did change his pitch mix in this one. He basically scrapped his slider completely. He threw a lot more curveballs in this outing. Chris, anything here? Does this matter? Brandon Bielak pitching well?
I don't really think so. I mean, his changeup's actually a very good pitch. So I don't want to say there's nothing there, but I think it was probably just the Colorado Rockies are not very good.
Yeah, and the start was in Houston, so I think that makes perfect sense as well. Do any of these waiver wire hitters matter for fantasy? Obviously, they matter. They're humans. They're awesome. I'm sure they're great people. But, Chris, I'm just going to go one by one. You tell me if these names matter for fantasy. The first one is Ahmed Rosario, who went 3 for 4 with his second home run of the season. And over his last 25 games, he's batting .346. That's awesome. 16 runs, 18 RBI, 1 homer, and 1 steal. So it's just kind of empty batting average right now. Chris, does Ahmed Rosario matter in fantasy?
Yeah, even the RBI and run numbers they're fine. Yeah. But, for hitting 350 over a 25-game stretch, it's a little underwhelming. I tend to think that we know what Ahmed Rosario is, and even when things are going well, he's not running as much as we hoped he would with the new rules, and so I generally think he is what he is, and it's an empty batting average when things are going well, so not super excited to add him.
Yeah, I think he needs to remain rostered in deeper roto leagues with middle infield spots, and he's someone that could catch fire and go on these crazy runs, so I'm not going to rule out the possibility, but even in 12-team leagues, I don't think you need to go there yet with Ahmed Rosario. Brett Beatty went 2 for 4 with a run scored, and over his last 16 games, he's batting .304 with 1 homer and 1 steal, only 2 walks to 18 strikeouts. He's hitting the ball very hard, but also lots of ground balls. And Chris, Brett Beatty feels like the latest young player that for years moving forward, we're just going to beg him to raise his launch angle. And I don't know if it's going to happen. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that was the concern as a prospect, and he had started to show signs of figuring that out, but he was hitting a lot of ground balls in the minors as well. So yeah, that's a little bit of a concern. Again, another player I like having around for upside, but not a must roster player.
James Outman went 2 for 3 with a double dong. His first home run, not just his first 2, his first homer since May 17th. James Outman has been in an extended slump. He's batting only .237, still 54% rostered. Chris, does this matter?
It matters in as much as it's a reminder that he exists and a reason to not drop him. Like I added him in one of my leagues where he got dropped just in case, and maybe he can get hot. He's now had multiple hits in 2 of the last 3 games. I think did he sit one of those, or did the Dodgers not play? Sorry, yeah, they didn't play on Monday. So he started. Yeah. If you are not inclined to drop him, I think this is a decent reason for it, but I would drop him for Colton Cowser.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had him in a few 5 outfielder leagues, even a 15-team league. I had him in the NFBC, and we dropped him, I think, either late May or early June, and I haven't really thought about picking him back up.
I'd put him in the same Kelnick, Bellinger category that I did earlier. It's been a very similar story. I think his Outman's success might have lasted a little longer, and then the fall was a little harder. But yeah, I don't see a ton to get excited about there.
All right, Jarren Duran went 2 for 3 with a double and a triple, both over 110 exit velocity. Crazy hard hits there from Jarren Duran. He's 42% rostered, but he's not playing every day. So that's an issue right now, Chris. Does Jarren Duran matter for fantasy?
Yeah, it's really hard to be valuable when you're a platoon player. This is kind of what we're running into with Josh Lowe, who I think is a better version of that, but they kind of look pretty similar right now, right? Josh Lowe has more power, but the overall numbers are probably not that dissimilar. More batting average for Duran and probably more speed. I'd like to see him get more of a chance against lefties, but he's got 12 strikeouts and 36 plate appearances, so I don't see it's not like he's forcing it when he's had the opportunity. So I think this is about as valuable as Jarren Duran's going to get.
There was a report on Tuesday that Adam Duvall is kind of falling into a short side platoon role, so maybe Duran plays a little bit more moving forward. He wasn't even playing against every righty. He's kind of been playing every other game, every third game, but maybe he will play more against right-handed pitching.
He's forcing their hand right now.
Yeah, he's absolutely crushing the ball, and not much power recently, but some extra base hits, and whenever he gets on, it seems like Jarren Duran is off and running. 2 names in deeper leagues. Do you think they matter, Chris? Corey Julks went 4 for 5 with a double, an RBI, and his 14th steal. He has just quietly been racking up hits and steals. He had 3 hard hits in this game, and over his last 12 games, Corey Julks is batting .378 with a homer and 4 steals. The other name is Mike Ford, who went 4 for 5 with 2 doubles and his 7th home run. Just a completely random stat. He became the 7th player in MLB history with 4+ hits, 3 of those being extra base hits on his birthday. So, happy birthday, Mike Ford. He celebrates the same birthday as you, Chris. Do either of these names matter, Mike Ford and Corey Julks?
No. The other fun Mike Ford stat that I had the other day was he's had a bunch of hits since then, but as of, I think, last Thursday, he had 9 hits and 7 of them were home runs. So he's had a bunch of non-home run hits in the last week or so, which is great for him. No, I think especially Mike Ford doesn't matter. I think Corey Julks, the speed, I don't know if there's much more beyond a 262 batting average or what. No, he's up to 274 now. I think this is probably the ceiling, but like 260 in steals bases, that's not a terrible player. It's just, not super exciting.
Corey Julks last year in the minors, granted, an older player. I think he was 26 years old at AAA last year. He hit .270 with 31 homers and 22 steals. So there is a little bit of power and speed there. I think if you play in a very
good plate discipline, a
very deep 5 outfielder league, you can do worse than Corey Julks right now. Let's hit some news and notes. Corbin Carroll was back in the lineup Tuesday, and of course, what did he do? He hit a home run off of Max Scherzer. I would say
after Scherzer struck out the first 2 batters of the game, the battles between those two were really fun today.
Hopefully the shoulder is fine. It looked pretty good on Tuesday for Corbin Carroll. Aaron Judge has begun doing some hitting off of a tee and taking soft toss. He also said he's walking around a little bit better, but admits his injured toe still does not feel great. And I don't know if this is just the pessimistic Yankee fan in me, Chris, but I just kind of feel like this isn't going to end well for Judge, at least this season, right? He's going to try and come back. He's going to try and rehab, and maybe he plays for a few weeks and he's not himself. With everything that we know, even with resting, it hasn't really gotten much better. I just feel like this is going to be a problem until the offseason when they can address it then.
And it's a problem because he's a gigantic human being. I mean, he's 280 pounds or something. He's massive, just tall and large. And the Yankees don't really have the ability to play him at DH. I think that's the biggest problem. It's not just, letting the injury heal, but it's like he's pretty much going to have to play the outfield, and he's going to have to stand on that toe, and he's going to have to, run multiple times per inning and all the things that go along with that. And it's just, that is a lot of stress to put on a very serious injury. Turf toe sounds cute. It's incredibly painful. Anybody who's ever had turf toe will tell you it's one of the most painful injuries that professional athletes deal with. It's a bad injury.
Is this turf toe?
I believe this is a turf toe injury.
I know he has I think it's a torn ligament in his toe. Is that the same thing as turf toe?
Yeah, turf toe is specifically how Steinbrenner likened it to turf toe.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I asked Scott recently if turf toe was on your foot or in your foot, and
I believe turf toe is a torn ligament in your big toe. I think that's what turf toe is specifically.
The Fantasy Baseball Today Facebook group, they were all making fun of me because I didn't know what turf toe was. I didn't know this common knowledge. I don't know.
A metatarsophalangeal joint sprain, an injury to the connective tissue between the foot and the toe. So it's where the toe and the foot meet. And when it's your big toe, it is a turf toe injury. I thought it was. Maybe it's not the big toe for him, but either way, it's a not good injury.
I thought you were going to say either way, it is a big toe because it's on Aaron.
Well, yes. Also, I'm sure he wears like size 16 shoes. It's probably a big toe either way.
I still blame the Dodgers. Why do you have a big cement block going around the outfield of your?
Yeah,
stadium?
it's the big toe.
It's like old and outdated. I don't get it. Anyway, I blame the Dodgers. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully Judge comes back and he's awesome. Jose Altuve was scratched Tuesday due to left oblique discomfort. He missed 4 games in early June with a similar injury and sounds like it might be lingering a little bit. Max Fried threw live batting practice Tuesday and will be reevaluated Wednesday. He's been out since early May with a left forearm strain. Framber Valdez has been cleared to start Thursday against the Mariners, and he missed his previous start this past weekend due to a sprained right ankle.
It's a little frustrating. I benched him, but you had to. If we weren't going to know, I mean, there's no way.
I have a deeper league where I benched him for Michael Wacha, and then Wacha went on the IL.
Oh, that's rough. I actually think I benched him for Kyle Hendricks, so that worked out okay.
That did work out pretty well. Jazz Chisholm, as we suspected, not great. Diagnosed with actually the news is a little bit better than we thought. Diagnosed with a mild oblique strain and will be sidelined for at least the next couple of weeks, but frankly, it could have been worse. Dustin May will undergo season-ending surgery to repair the flexor tendon in his right elbow, and it sounds like he'll miss the first month or two of next season as well.
Yeah, the timing is similar to Tarik Skubal, I believe. Around this time last year was when Skubal had his injury. So, yeah. So
he might even miss the first 3 months of next season, Dustin May. Yu Darvish is aiming to rejoin the Padres rotation this weekend against the Mets. He has not pitched since June 21st due to an illness that caused him to lose 7 pounds. Not great.
Just Tarik Skubal's injury was he had surgery about a month and a half after. So yeah, it could be like a May for Dustin May next year.
Chris Sale is on an every other day throwing program and is feeling good. He's not eligible to return until early August. Brandon Lau was activated off the IL and was batting 6th Tuesday.
That's one we didn't mention, but in that discussion of middle infielders, Brandon Lau, I'd put in that Ezekiel Tovar, and he's rostered around the same rate. I think he's 63% or something like that.
That's surprising, actually.
He's probably not going to play every day. They talked about that today, that they're probably going to limit his playing time, but he was awesome in April. Looked like 2021 Brandon Lau, and then the back issues cropped up. So if he's healthy, I think Brandon Lau is still good.
Back injuries are tough, man. We've seen it with Clayton Kershaw. This is something that can kind of knock you out for multiple years. So we'll see. We'll monitor with Brandon Lau. Michael Wacha was placed in the IL with right shoulder inflammation, retroactive to July 2nd. He's been battling this shoulder injury for the past couple weeks. Liam Hendricks will throw a bullpen session this weekend. He's been out since early June with right elbow inflammation. Michael Kopech is expected to return to the White Sox rotation after the All-Star break. They placed him on the IL a couple days ago to give him extended rest. We mentioned Brian Wu could get shut down in the second half. Yankees manager Aaron Boone said he's considered moving Anthony Volpe back up to the leadoff spot with how well he's been hitting since mid-June. Nestor Cortez is on track for a live batting practice session On Sunday, he's been out for the past month with a strained rotator cuff. Anthony DeSclafani was placed on the IL with right shoulder fatigue. Nick Madrigal placed on the IL with a right hamstring strain. Jose Quintana scheduled to make another rehab start Friday at AAA. Adam Wainwright was placed on the IL with right shoulder inflammation, aka getting destroyed by the Miami Marlins inflammation. Zach Greinke left Tuesday's start due to right shoulder discomfort. Nelson Cruz was designated for assignment by the Padres, and Phillies top prospect Andrew Painter did not throw live batting practice on Tuesday because of some stiffness. He's been dealing with a sprained UCL since March. Does not sound good for him.
I think we'll see him in 2024.
I know.
I don't want to
I understand why the Phillies don't want a 19 or 20-year-old to go under the knife, but it just kind of feels like it's going to end that way at some point anyway. So I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I hope, again, I'm kind of pessimistic when it comes to this stuff. I hope Andrew Painter doesn't need to have surgery. Let's take our final break, and when we return, we'll get into the rest of all the stuff that happened on July 4th here on Fantasy Baseball Today.
Get breaking news.
Big news coming out of the NFL today.
Highlights and instant reactions.
The largest final round comeback in tour championship history. We're down to the final four.
I just want to take time to analyze greatness.
Talk winners and losers with a guy who's already a big winner.
CBS Sports HQ. It's all sports all day long.
Welcome back, and a big thank you to everyone watching us live on YouTube. It's well past 1 a.m. Eastern time. We have over 400 people here hanging out. It was, we just wrapped up July 4th. I'm sure everyone had a great time. Do your thing, drink some drinks, eat some food, but we're happy that you're here hanging out with us. Like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. 3 massive pitching performances from Tuesday. Aaron Nola, this is what we've been waiting for, and it's almost frustrating because you know how good he can be, and he goes into Tampa Bay and pitches this well. 7 1/3 innings, 1 run allowed, 12 strikeouts for Aaron Nola. Great performance in this one. Logan Gilbert tossed the first shutout, the first complete game of his career. He was at the Giants. He allowed 5 hits with 7 strikeouts and a career high 22 swinging strikes. And the other name is Joe Musgrove, who has now turned in 5 straight quality starts. He was facing the Angels, 7 innings of 1-run ball with 11 strikeouts and 25 swinging strikes, his most in a start since April 19th of 2021. Chris, 3 big names here: Joe Musgrove, Logan Gilbert, and Aaron Nola.
Yeah, Nola we'll start with. He just, I don't know, he goes through these stretches, right? And it's always frustrating when it happens. This year's been a little different because the strikeouts are way down. Strikeout rate was down to 23% coming into this start. That's a significant difference. It was 29% last season. Whiff rate on his curveball was down. I tend to think, in looking at some of the data, that there might have been just a mechanical issue that maybe he sorted out. So hopefully that's the case. Musgrove's a really, really tough player to handicap right now because we know he's dealing with this bursitis issue in his elbow, and it's the type of issue that likely won't lead to a more severe injury, or at least as long as he's not compensating for it, right? It's more about managing pain than getting worse. But we don't know how much that's affecting him. I'm having a really hard time figuring out where to put Musgrove in my rankings. He's in like the 20 range, and I think that's higher than it is for you, right?
I think I have him at 26 or 27, something like that.
Yeah.
Feels like he probably deserves to be higher than that.
Yeah, I have him 15.
I have him at 27, yeah. But for example, I have Yu Darvish at 17, and Darvish has been really bad this year. Like,
yeah,
there's a discussion for me to swap those guys.
But
lower Darvish.
Musgrove's strikeout rate is the lowest it's been since 2018. So it's not like he's actually been great this season. He's been really up and down, just like a lot of the guys in that range. It's been a really hard year to rank starting pitchers. But, the last couple of starts, especially last 3 starts, we're starting to see the strikeouts come back. Hopefully that's a harbinger of things to come for Musgrove.
Anything that you would like to add on Logan Gilbert? Career high 22 swinging strikes in the first complete game of his career.
I think it's probably unlikely that this is the start of him being a big swing and miss pitcher. It's just not a significant part of his game, but he's good. You know, I think even like the 4.19 or 3.82 ERA right now after this start, he's better than that. His xERA coming into this start was 3.56. He's not an elite strikeout pitcher, but you know, he does a decent job with hard contact. He doesn't allow a lot of walks. I think it all points to a solid mid-threes ERA for Logan Gilbert.
And specifically in this start, the velocity was up on the fastball and the slider. They were up over 1 mile per hour. So good news there for Logan Gilbert. I think he's been a little bit unlucky this season. I think from here on out, I would probably expect something closer to a mid-threes ERA for Logan Gilbert. Chris, I know that you love arbitrary starting and end points here. So
Love it.
I have a little segment filled with a bunch of different hitters with different time frames of where they've played well. And
I am disappointed by the absence of one name because he actually has a non-arbitrary endpoint. And I'm sure you talked about it yesterday with Anthony Volpe.
Yes, we did.
Did we talk about the chicken parm dinner?
Absolutely did.
Good. Okay. Because that's the kind of non-arbitrary endpoints we like. Get out of here with these arbitrary endpoints.
Anytime that a good old chicken parm dinner.
Anytime we can talk about chicky parm.
Turn your career around. Yeah, we've got to use that to we've definitely got to talk about that. But anyway, let's talk about some of these hitters. I'll bring them up. Chris, if you have something to add, fine. If not, we'll move on to the next player. Bobby Witt Jr. went 2 for 4 with his 13th home run, and since the start of June, 30 games. He is batting .307 with 3 homers and 8 steals. The batting average and the speed is obviously very fun. We need more power.
The flip might have been switched. I will say might, because if you look at the underlying metrics, last season, Bobby Witt played right to his underlying metrics. He had a 311 WOBA and a 313 expected WOBA, 252 batting average, or 252 average, 252 XBA. This year, he looks like he hasn't really taken a step forward at all. The surface level numbers look basically identical to last season, but the underlying numbers are a lot better. Expected WOBA on contact is up from 377 to 428 this year. Last year it was about average. This year it's significantly above average. XBA 286, X slug 504. There are very, very good signs that a Bobby Witt breakout is happening. Quality of contact metrics way up, and it's not necessarily being captured in the production yet. So that's I feel like I ragged on him a little bit last week, but he's the data looks pretty good for him.
And because he plays for the Royals, we really don't hear much about Bobby Witt Jr., but he is on pace for the quietest 25-40 season.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a really, really good season. He's doing it with a lower batting average, 251 or 254 now. But look, if you buy those expected stats, then maybe it could be like a 270 batting average by the end of the season. William Contreras went 2 for 4 with a run and RBI. He has 3 straight multi-hit games, and over his last 23 games, he's batting .291 with 3 homers. He's hitting the ball really hard. The problem is a lot of it is on the ground.
Yeah, and that's less of a concern when you're talking about a catcher, right? Because it's like the bar is really, really low. It's something that we've, I did a podcast for FFT on the Falcons, and it was talking about Kyle Pitts versus Drake London. Physically, they're very similar players, same offense, all that stuff. Just take the tight end. The guy who, if he gets 800 yards and 5 touchdowns, is going to be a top 5 guy. That's kind of the thing with William Contreras, where it's like, oh, I'd like him to hit the ball in the air more, but I'm not really going to harp on it because he's a catcher. He's still a top 10 guy for me.
All right. Dansby Swanson went 2 for 6 with his 10th home run. And over his last 18 games, he's batting .284 with 4 homers. He's not hitting the ball very hard, but when he does, he's doing a good job of barreling the ball. That is Dansby Swanson. Chris, any thoughts on him?
Sorry, I got distracted by a comment that says, I like the Christ Towers thumbnail. He looks very sexy. Got distracted. No, don't really have much to add on Dansby Swanson. Yeah, I struggled with his slow start to the season because so much of last season was a bit of an outlier, but he's still remained in like the 125 overall range. It's just there are so many good shortstops right now that he's fallen in the shortstop rankings less because of concern about him than just other guys passing him.
The last name on this list is Manny Machado, who went 3 for 3 with a walk, 2 runs, and an RBI. And in 30 games since returning from the IL, he is batting .282 with 6 home runs, 18 runs scored, and 19 RBI, which sounds a lot like what we should expect from Manny Machado.
Yeah, his overall numbers and expected numbers are still pretty mediocre, but I've said it all along. With a player like Manny Machado, with the track record that he has, I don't worry too much about the expected stats because it's more likely that it's just a slump. Like when the expected numbers are bad for Manny Machado, I'm much more likely to think, yeah, but he's going to be fine because it's Manny Machado. He'll tinker something in his swing. He'll start hitting the ball hard and he'll be fine. So I haven't really, he's another guy that I haven't really moved down very much at all.
All right, let's wrap up here with some leftovers, and we'll start with the pitching side of things. Jesus Luzardo has now thrown 3 straight scoreless outings. He was facing the Cardinals on Tuesday, 6 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts for him. Dane Dunning has turned in 4 straight quality starts. I'm not exactly sure how he's doing it, but he is doing it at the Red Sox. 6 innings of 1-run ball with 4 strikeouts for Dane Dunning. And Zach Eflin, another strong start up against the Phillies. 7 innings, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts to 0 walks with 17 swinging strikes. Chris, anything on Eflin, Dane Dunning, and Jesus Luzardo?
Eflin's good. That's one I really didn't give enough credit to coming into the season. I have him on 1 or 2 teams, but I wish it was more. Luzardo's really good as well. I do wonder, he's got to be very close to last year's innings total. He's actually surpassed last year's innings total. He's already thrown a career high at the major league level, if I'm looking at it correctly. So
the
Marlins are going, well, no, it's just that, there might be a point where they have to skip him as well. This is a Marlins rotation that doesn't really have a lot of guys that have thrown deep into the season. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. Dunning, I don't know, maybe it's just Bryce Elder. Again, the AL version of Bryce Elder, and I'm just going to keep being wrong about him, but I don't think there's anything here.
Chris, I do have a request. I'm looking at your starting pitcher rankings. You have Zach Eflin at 56.
That's too low.
Well, let's get him.
Yeah, he should be in like the top 40.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, Zach Eflin, he's been awesome. You know who was not awesome? Shane Bieber. Of course, last time out, I tried to give him a compliment. I said he was doing some nice things. Velocity was up a little bit. Swinging strikes had been a little bit better recently. And you know how he repays me? He was crap. It's against the Atlanta Braves, obviously. It's a really tough matchup. 4 2/3 innings, 4 runs allowed. He was very wild in this one. 5 walks to 4 strikeouts. Chris, anything on Shane Bieber after a bad outing?
No, like you, I was optimistic about his last few outings because the swing strike rates had been up. The strikeouts had been there the last, I think, 3 outings before this one. So hopefully it's just a bump in the road, but obviously it's been more bump than road so far. It's been like like the shoulder has all the divots so that like when you like doze off and you drive off the road, you like get startled and wake up. It's been a lot of that for Shane Bieber this season.
Fair enough. Let's move over to the hitting leftovers. Jonathan India went 3 for 6 with a double dong and 3 RBI. He had 5 hard hits in that game. And something I noticed is he has started batting 3rd in the Reds lineup since just before Ellie De La Cruz got called up. So it's now 36 games where India is batting .217 during that time. He still has 10 homers and 4 steals. So he's been very productive. But you look into the batted ball data, he's lifting the ball. He's hitting more fly balls, more pop-ups. Chris, it kind of feels like India's selling out because he's now a middle-of-the-order bat, and I don't know that he needs to do that.
Yeah, there was also a weird interview with him, I think, right when they were calling up. I think they had just called up Matt McClain, and everyone's pounding the table for Ellie De La Cruz to get called up. And, Jonathan India, there were quotes to the effect of like, I'm still here, guys. I'm like 26 years old. Like,
and he's good.
Yeah, like he's a good player. And so, I do think it's a weird situation where, like, is he pressing because he feels the pressure of this young core coming up and at least in, I don't know, in the organization's eyes, but in the fans' eyes, it certainly seems like he's been displaced. And it's like, well, no, he's still a good young player. And so I do wonder if that is taking a psychological toll on him in addition to what you mentioned.
I don't think that they should do this, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Reds flip Jonathan India for pitching sometime around the trade deadline. Matt McClain could play second base. You could have Ellie De La Cruz play short, and then you could call up Christian Encarnacion Tran to play third base. It just seems to make sense. They have an overabundance, and they really could use pitching help. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of Ellie De La Cruz, he went 4 for 4, as did his rookie teammate Spencer Steer, 4 for 4 in that game as well. Byron Buxton went 3 for 4 with a sock and a shoe, his 15th home run and his 8th stolen base.
Surprised how much he's running.
Yeah, me too.
Given that they've basically said he physically cannot play the outfield, but I guess he's okay to run. It's his most steals. He's 1 steal short of his most in the last 5 years.
And I kind of felt like blaming this low batting average on the fact that it feels like he's been playing hurt all year. But if they're letting him run, I don't know.
Yeah.
How hurt is he if he's stealing bases? I don't want to doubt it. It's probably not fair to him. Francisco Lindor went 1 for 3 with a walk and 2 steals. He is up to 17 home runs and 11 steals on the season. Starling Marte went 2 for 3 with a sock and a shoe, his 5th home run and 22nd steal. Wander Franco went 2 for 4 with a sock and a shoe, his 10th homer and 27th.
27 steal. I knew it was a big number, but man, that is
crazy stuff. Xander Bogaerts went 2 for 3 with his 10th home run. That's back-to-back games with a homer. Ozzie Albies went 2 for 3 with a double dong. He is up to 22 homers. And Mookie Betts added his 23rd home run of the season. Very quiet. 23 homers. He's on pace for a career high in terms of home runs. He just quietly does his job. He gets it done, and Mookie Betts has been awesome.
I'm really not looking forward to him hitting 12 home runs in the second half, which would be a more normal pace, and everyone blaming it on the home run derby.
You know it's going to happen too, Chris. So get ready. The call to the bullpen. A few updates here for the Reds. Alexis Diaz was unavailable. Lucas Sims picked up his first save. For Texas, Will Smith entered in the 9th inning with 2 outs and runners on first and second. He got the final out for his 15th save. For the Mets, David Robertson got the final out for his 12th save. The Phillies, Craig Kimbrell struck out 2 for his 13th. The Cubs, Adbert Alzolay entered in the 8th inning with 2 runners on and a 3-run lead. He gave up an RBI double. He stayed out there for the 9th inning where he gave up 2 more runs and he took his first blown save. The Cubs would eventually win in extra innings. For Oakland, Trevor May walked 1 but picked up his 6th save. He is 8% rostered, and if you are really desperate for saves in a deeper league, Trevor May looks like the A's closer for now.
Just might not help you. I think he still has more walks than strikeouts for the season.
My guess is they're just trying to rehab any value and flip him at the deadline for anything. So I don't know how long Trevor May is going to have value for. The Padres, Josh Hader entered in the 9th inning with the bases loaded and a 5-run lead. He would then walk in 2 runs, but eventually picked up his 19th save of the season. For the Guardians, something's wrong with Emmanuel Clase. It's weird. He entered the 9th with a 1-run lead. Granted, it's Ozzie Albies and the Braves. They're really good. He gave up a solo homer to Albies. He took his league-leading 7th blown save of the year for Emmanuel Clase.
Does he lead in both? Does he lead in saves and blown saves?
I know he was tied for the lead with 24 saves, but Jordan Romano picked up his 25th.
Okay.
I think that that might have given Romano the lead now again, which I just mentioned. Jordan Romano, he struck out the side for his 25th. And for the Dodgers, I didn't get to update this. Let's do it together. Evan Phillips.
He blew the save, I believe.
Yeah, Evan Phillips entered in the 9th inning with a 1-run lead. He would give up 3 runs on 2 hits and 2 walks. He took his 2nd blown save and his 3rd loss.
Mm-hmm.
I heard the Dodgers broadcast talking about him working a lot of days, so probably is a little fatigued.
I will say, though, Daniel Hudson's looked pretty good.
Daniel Hudson time. Could be.
I think he pitched in this one and had a strikeout.
Yeah. It might happen. Might happen there for Daniel Hudson. Let's wrap up with to stream or not to stream. We'll start with Wednesday, where yesterday I think I said JP France versus the Rockies.
Yep, France.
That start is in Houston. I think we said Josiah Gray versus the Reds. I don't really.
Yeah, I don't feel super confident, but I don't hate it. I don't hate Soroka.
I agree.
At Cleveland, that lineup is real bad. I think they have 1 or 2 hitters with an OPS over 700. It's a real bad lineup.
On Thursday, more games than I thought. 12 game slate on Thursday. We have, let's see. I think
Michael Lorenzen.
Yeah.
Kyle Bradish.
The only thing with Bradish, he's much better at home.
Yeah, that's more about the Yankees being pretty bad. But yeah, no, if that was at Baltimore, I would definitely be starting Kyle Bradish. I think the Yankees right now are a middling matchup at home, so I think he's an okay streamer.
What about Jack Flaherty at your Miami Marlins?
Red hot Miami Marlins, baby. They put up 15 runs today. No, I don't have faith in Jack Flaherty.
You know, I had something written down about the Marlins putting up all these runs. Did I just not put it back on the rundown somewhere? Oh, it's up at the top.
Yeah, it's up at the top.
You know, I should have just led the podcast with that. The Miami Marlins scoring a season high 15 runs. Anywho, we're gonna wrap.
That's gotta fix that run differential after the Braves series. You know,
absolutely got to do it. And you know what? No team better to do it against than the St. Louis Cardinals, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
We are going to wrap there. For Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.